Hi.
Oh,
What's this? Volume on that one. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome. This program is being recorded. I'd like to offer a sincere thank you to our guests for being here today. We've asked each one of them to sort of wave to the camera when I say their name so you know who is who. Please welcome Jennifer Goldberg, elementary technology specialist for K through 4, Kimberly Phillips, middle school technology specialist from 5th through 8th grade, and Laura Hutelmyer, high school technology specialist from 9th through 12th. In shifting the program to a more cooperative and interactive form of communication, we ask everyone here and to all of those joining us on Zoom today to treat all of our guests and all of our subsequent guests with the utmost respect and appreciation for being here. This meeting, as with all of our roundtable meetings, will occur in the spirit of cooperation, open communication, and mutual respect. And again, this is being recorded.
and we should probably introduce ourselves. I'm Lisa Prosnitz, co-president of the Interschool Council.
And Cami Pulsifer, co-president of ISA as well.
And I'm also going to give a really quick plug for our book club. Next session is on February 24th at Black Rock Middle School at 7 p.m. We are reading the book Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. Last session, we talked about the first half of the book, so we're going to focus on the second half of the book and encourage you all to come, even if you haven't finished the book. It's really a great read.
You do not need to have read it. You can read a brief section of the notes or not have read it at all. You just want to come and join the conversation.
And it's a great conversation with administrators, staff, teachers, parents. Like, it's a really nice collaborative effort where we get everyone in the room together. So that's kind of a special thing. So save that date. And with that, we're going to turn off our microphone and I guess, can you? Oh, okay. We're still flickering now.
We're having some technical difficulties. We usually don't have 3 guests all at once. We're a little.
If someone in the chat, if someone on Zoom cannot hear us, I guess, if you guys can let us know by chat, because we're trying to work the microphone issue. So we've got a series of questions, and obviously 3 of you here. I think some of them we're gonna just ask one of you, and some of them you all might want to chime in. So actually, that's helpful. Kimberly, if you want to start, do you want to just talk about what your job is, what you wish?
Sure. Before I even talk about my job, I'd love if all of us can introduce ourselves and kind of our background to the district, if that's okay.
Great, actually.
So I've been in our district since 2014, and I started at Belmont Hills. I don't know if there's any Belmont Hills families here. I taught 4th grade there for a number of years, and that's a really special school to me. I also was our technology mentor there. So teachers would stay after school with me for an hour a week, and I would coach them on different technology platforms they could use. During that time, I had an opportunity to also pilot STEM as a special during our summer programs. So I'm a STEM certified educator. I went through Arcadia in a STEM cohort that Jen also had an opportunity to be a part of. That's a large passion of mine. After that, I had an opportunity to go to Temple University to get my instructional technology specialist certificate. And at the time, this position opened up at the middle schools. So I've been in the middle schools for the last 4 years supporting teachers in this role. So now that I told you about the role, let's talk about what the job looks like in the middle school. So one of the biggest things is supporting teachers in integrating technology to enhance our student learning and outcomes. I also help with facilitating professional development, and it's all grounded in research. We try to make sure that what we're doing is tied to educational research, making sure what we're giving teachers is timely, practical, and useful. So if we give them something, they could turn around and use it the next day in their classroom. We also make sure that you all know that technology is not just about devices. A lot of people think technology, they think computers, but really it's about enhancing instruction, fostering creativity and preparing students for the future. So one of the big things we talk about is that 21st century skills, which is communication, collaboration, creativity, and what am I missing? Communication, did I say that already? Communication, collaboration, critical thinking. And that's a big part of what we do. Something else that we do as part of our job is we foster student lessons, where we create lessons for digital citizenship to help students learn how to interact in a safe environment. We also work with teachers in a classroom collaborative way where they can partner with us, say we're working on something. How can we use technology to enhance instruction? Not replace something, but enhance it, make it even better. And we just stay on top of those current trends as they continue to evolve and build at a rapid pace. And I also support our school leaders and district leaders on certain initiatives that they have.
Okay, so I'm Jen Goldberg. This is my 26th year here in Lower Merion School District. I actually student taught here in 1999. Actually, no, that's not true. It was the 97, 98 school year for student teaching. 99 was the first year I was hired here, fresh out of college. I was so young, they called me Baby Jen when I first started at Penn Valley. But I've taught, I spent 12 years in the classroom. I taught second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade during those 12 years. Most of it was in second grade at Penn Wynne, but I did work at Kinwood, and I also worked at Penn Valley. I also did a year of K-2 reading during that time period. So I kind of bounced around a lot. I wasn't contracted. Took me about 5 years till I got contracted, so it was a lot of movement, but it was great. It was a great experience for me. I honestly think that people really need to have that background. It was always sort of my plan to spend about 10 years in the classroom and then move out of the classroom because I always wanted to have a bigger impact. So I loved working with students, and I miss that a lot now, but I like feeling like I have a bigger impact. So what I do impacts teachers, which impacts students at a larger level. So I did spend 12 years in the classroom, and then this job opened up at the elementary level, and I was very excited to take it. I've been doing this now for 14 years, and I honestly think it's the best job ever. I love what I do because I have my foot in a lot of doors. I get to work in classrooms. I get to be a teacher. I get to teach lessons alongside teachers. I get to model digital citizenship skills. I get to model lessons for teachers, but I also get to have a hand in the decisions and the products and the way we utilize the technology that we have. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So I'm really happy to be in this position. What else? So Kim took all the good stuff, so I apologize for you, Laura, because by the time I get down to you, but I don't want to repeat all the things that Kim said because we do work very closely together. And so the principals and the research and the professional development that Kim mentioned, we all sort of do the same work. One of the things that I did when I first started in this role, I guess it was 2013, was I created the position of tech tutor, which Kim was one of my tech tutors. Tech tutor is just a simple position at a school where it's just an extra person who's given a stipend. They spend an hour a week, and they're just available to answer questions and kind of just be a more available resource. Since I support 6 schools and I'm clearly not at your school every day, there's somebody there every day who can do those kinds of things. And they're more on the how to, which button do I click, as opposed to me, which is more the curriculum and the integration piece of it. So I work closely with the tech tutors, but that's a position that I created because I felt like there was a need to have a bigger reach. And so that's been going really, really well for the past 10 years or so. I also like to see myself as a resource for teachers. I like teachers come to me, they have questions, they want to integrate this, they want to utilize this, they want to know how to support students in this way. So I'm a resource for teachers. I'm also a resource for families. I have a newsletter for families. I have newsletters for teachers. I try to maintain resources on the district webpage as well. So I try to be a resource. People can ask me questions, and I try to, share my knowledge in that way. I too have a STEM certification as well. I also have an instructional technology specialist certification and a master's in instructional tech. I also have a lot of other certifications besides elementary and I have a secondary cert as well, but I'm a Google certified educator level 2. I'm a Magic School AI certified educator level 3. I am a Seesaw certified educator. I am an Apple teacher. I'm a member of ASCD, ISTE, and PAECT, which is the Pennsylvania version of ISTE. I mention that because I try really hard to maintain like current, all those certifications, with the exception of Magic School, but Google and Seesaw require annual trainings to maintain those certifications. So it's not like I took the course 5 years ago and I'm done. Google makes you retest every year, or every 2 years actually, for the Google cert, and Seesaw does make you retest every year. So I try to maintain current certifications so that I know what is out there and how I can best use the resources to support. The second part of the question, which was what do I want people to know? What do I want parents to know? And the biggest message I can give at the elementary level is that technology at the elementary level is deliberate. And what I mean by that is that we use it for a purpose. It's not a babysitter. It's not, kids aren't sitting there staring at YouTube all day. I think there's a pendulum, and technology has gone back and forth over the years. Like I said, I've been doing this for 14 years now, so I've seen lots of movement in different directions, and we had a pandemic and everything was technology, and I think we're kind of sliding back the other direction, but the elementary technology that we use is deliberate. It's there for a purpose. It enhances what we do, and I hope that you trust that we're using it for a reason, not just to entertain kids because we have nothing else going on. I like to think of technology like a healthy diet, right? Balance, variety, and moderation. So that's kind of always my mantra as we're deciding on what technology we want to use and how to incorporate it. I also want to mention that parents play a very important role in home technology use. You serve as a role model, and you also serve as a leader in your family of what's important to you and how you utilize technology and how you can send that message to your children. So I hope that parents trust that we're doing our job here and that you're doing your job at home as well. The last thing I want to mention is that I am a parent of 2 teenagers, so I am in this with you. I am up to my eyeballs in social media. If I want to talk to my kids, it's Snapchat or nothing. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of them right now. You got to have a fun filter or they're going to ignore me. Like, it's just like, that's where I am. That's true. Don't laugh. If it doesn't have a fun, and sometimes they'll even laugh at the filters I choose. So I'm in this. I'm going through this. I have very precocious kids who, really give me a good run for my money. So I'm learning as I go. I can't call my mom and say, hey, how did you do this? How did you handle my first Snapchat account? How old was I when I got that? Like, I can't call my mother and ask her that. So I'm figuring this out as I go, and I like to share all the lessons that I learned from my own kids and just from my own experiences as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Hutelmyer, and I work across both high schools. I started with the district in 2011 as a science teacher at Harriton. And over the course of the beginning of my teaching career, I did my instructional tech cert at St. Joe's. I loved it so much that I started to split the current role with the person who had it at the time, and slowly transitioned full-time into the role right around the time of the pandemic, which was really crazy, as we all know. And at that time, I also was working on my master's in online teaching and learning, which really helped. And I did not plan that ahead. So it just worked out really well to have that level of knowledge just for our teachers. And now I'm in a doctoral program, and I'm focusing my work on AI and teacher preparedness. So that's where I'm hoping to start doing more research. Everything they've said is right on track. Just to build a little bit more in terms of what we've been working on more recently. We've really started to move into a coaching role, so one-on-one coaching for our teachers to support them in more targeted ways, really focusing on what are their needs, what are their student needs. So really getting down to needs, addressing needs, and not just here's a tool, let's see what it does. So that's been really special work we've been doing. I think it's been really rewarding. We work, the teacher's school year, the same calendar year, but we also do a lot of summer work. So we collaborate with curriculum supervisors and our building principals to get our schools up and running for the school year. So that's just one other piece of the puzzle for us. And then we've been very involved in leading professional development lately, especially tied to like instructional practice and like AI, and just trying to stay on top of everything that's changing so quickly.
Yeah, it is. That is true. Well, you guys answered some of our questions, which is great. I guess just looking here, and for those of you that are new to our roundtable format, we have kind of a set list of questions that we ask our guests, and then we open things up for questions. So I guess if someone wants to answer what's going really well this year, what you're finding challenging this year. Yeah, I don't know, Laura, do you want to?
Sure.
You get the first crack at it.
We've had a huge increase in teacher interest in AI and just trying to get a grasp on it themselves, because like, you know, you're reading in the news headlines every day about the job sectors exploding. How are we navigating this ethically? So I know like this group probably is also like in tune with that stuff, and that's just something we're trying to stay on top of, and offering our teachers opportunities to participate in professional development, but also collaborate with one another on like what are they seeing or what are they thinking about doing in the classroom. So really it's right now where teachers I think are trying to use it themselves, a lot of times for efficiency and just enhancing lessons. And we're actually starting a cohort this week at the secondary level to let teachers collaborate on integrating into the classroom, starting to think about how might I use this in a lesson with students if if we want to bring that in. And something else I think that's gone really well for us is some of the professional development we've led. So like one of the most recent ones we did was for our induction program for new teachers, and we did stations for the teachers, similar to how like teachers might do learning stations in the classroom. And they got to experience an AI tool, they got to engage with a resource with all kinds of curated resources on lesson openers and closers. So that was like the theme, just like how do you open a lesson, how do you close a lesson? And one of their favorite stations in the feedback was the station where they got to collaborate and show and tell. And their homework assignment was to come in and have something to show and tell. And so they showed, an opener or closer that is working well for them, and they just loved hearing from one another. So hearing those kinds of experiences, I think, has really helped us to tailor our professional development so that it's not just like sit and get, but it's really collaborative.
Mm-hmm. I just want to add on just a few other things. So Laura mentioned about our induction program and having the new teachers. The sessions that we created with doing stations turned out to be so well. We actually just presented about it at P&C, which is a large educational technology conference that just happened last week, and we had a full crowd to see it. So it's great that things that are happening here are being shared out and people want to learn from what we're doing. We also have been doing technology challenges for teachers to help them get like bite-sized PD. One we had was about, we call like Tech the Halls, and we do it right before winter break. We do a little tip every day. We had our most participation yet this year. We've also taken that and we've presented that both at P&C and a conference that's in Lancaster. It's called the Elementary and Secondary Technology Conference. So people have come to learn to us about some of our professional development experiences. And I know you've all felt the shift of our time change. Now at the middle school, we used to not have any time in the morning before the students came in. Now our teachers come in at 7:20 and the students come in a little bit later. So we have a gap of time. And what's new and exciting this year is I have time with my teachers in the morning. So I do pop-up PD sessions for them, bite-sized, that are monthly. So they're just getting just what they need, that in person. And I know that's going across our buildings. I just wanted to share that shift really was helpful for more face-to-face time with our teachers.
Another win,
yes. A win maybe you weren't even anticipating, but it's really helpful having that that time. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the things that's going well that I was going to mention is full day kindergarten is also going really well. I was curious how that would happen because we have a lot of new teachers. We have a lot of teachers who haven't taught kindergarten or haven't taught a full day experience, which is different than the half day that we had been doing. And I was curious how that was going to happen, and it's been going really well. The teachers have been great about working together as a team. They really support one another. The students have really embraced it, and they're great. So I try to spend a lot of time in kindergarten and see how they're managing it, and it's been going really, really well. So I'm excited about that success. I think for me at the elementary level, one of the other successes has actually been our, and I hate talking about like data, here we are, but we have a new data warehouse tool called Linkit, and it just allows us to analyze the data that we have. It's new this year, and it's been going really, really well. And I feel like teachers have embraced it, learned how to use it, learned how to take data and make it meaningful for instruction, how to group kids, regroup kids, and really make it work for them. So I'm excited about that. Some of the new things that we have, besides what we've already talked about, we do have a lot of new teachers beyond just the kindergarten crew. There's over 45 new teachers just in elementary, or teachers who moved to different roles because of the kindergarten shift. A lot of people left second grade, third grade, whatever, moved into kindergarten, so that opened up new second grade teachers, third grade teachers. There's just a lot of new teachers, and so with that comes a lot of opportunity and a lot of great things. Also, just making sure that the new teachers are getting the same level of professional development, so I try to check in with the new teachers as well. We also, at the elementary level, in the last 2 years, have installed over 70 new Epson BrightLink interactive projectors. And so with that comes instructional technology and learning how to use those, learning how to utilize them, specifically with the curriculum. So I've been focusing mostly on K-2 because they use foundations, and a lot of the projectors were installed in K-2 classrooms. And so I created a video series working with Brooke Workman, who's our consultant. And she and I worked together. She taught sort of how to use foundations. I taught how to use the projector, and we made these videos. There's about 8 of them that we've made so far, and they're like 3 minutes or less to show teachers how do you use the technology with the core resources that you're instructing. So I would use this tool anyway, but how do I use it in an interactive way? How do I get students engaged in that lesson? So we've been doing a lot of work with that, trying to get teachers to really utilize that. The final thing that I think is going to be new this year for us is the online assessments at the elementary level. Our 3rd and 4th graders are going to be taking PSSAs online, and so we're just sort of working on how that looks, taking a look at, how do we make sure students are successful in that new endeavor.
Thank you. You're doing a great job of answering other questions as we go through, so we're just trying to streamline. Any of you can answer this, but how are you incorporating student feedback and student voice into your work?
You start, and then you start, you answer the first. So one thing that's really cool, Laura actually brought samples. One thing that we've been working on is executive functioning skills with our students, so helping them with like planning, time management, etc. And one of the things we did is at Welsh Valley, I helped design planners for the students. And instead of me just designing the planners, I actually met with student groups. I pulled them together and I asked them, what are you using now? What works? And a lot of them told me Post-it notes, which is very funny. Or that they just remember it. Okay, so we met with them, we talked about what works, what they liked about traditional planners, what they didn't like. And then I started making them samples and I brought them back. I did this with each grade level and I showed them different samples. They said, oh, I like this, I don't like this. And as I continued, I got to a point where we had a final product. And the last step, which I loved, is they said, I want the cover to be also student designed. So every planner at Welsh Valley, each quarter, the art students work to design their own cover page. And that is all student-driven, student choice, student feedback of making those planners. And then one other thing, and then I'll pass it to the group, is often teachers, when they work with me and try to plan out ways to mindfully integrate technology, is they'll say, like, I have to assess my students on something, and I don't want to use a traditional multiple choice assessment. Can you think of ways that I can take this and upgrade it? And oftentimes what we'll look at is giving students choices with how to demonstrate their learning using mindful technology integration, and students getting to have that option of maybe they're, more musical and they want to create their own music video to show, what they've learned at the end of this unit, or maybe they really like to design something. And then we'll have some traditional methods paired with it too, but all of those could just be a way that students can have some different choice in it. And I'll pass it to the group, whoever else wants to add in.
Wait, can I just ask you, this is just at Welsh Valley?
That part is at Welsh Valley, and then Laura is going to share it. They do this at.
Yeah, so this is the Lower Merion High School version that you have in your hands, but we definitely stole the template from Kim and their middle school work, so all the credit goes to them for the structure and how nice it looks. But that actually, so we didn't actually start with collaborating on a planner. I was coaching into 9th grade teams with our teachers, so I don't know if you're familiar, but our 9th grade teachers and students are teamed. So we have like teachers from different disciplines get together once a cycle and they meet and talk and plan and try to troubleshoot. And so I've been pushing in like once a quarter to just hear like what are their student needs, what are their needs, how can I support them better? And one of the things that came out of our first meeting was noticing that students are really, 9th graders particularly, struggling with organization. And what are we doing about that? And the teachers had really great ideas. And one of the things that came out of that conversation was we got focus groups of students together that were in upperclassmen grades. And we asked them a series of questions. How do you get organized? And we had like a series of questions. How do you study for your different classes? And through that feedback, we planned advisory lessons where the students then got to hear a filmed version of that panel. And a lot of times it's hard to engage students, and this was a time where like people really noticed the kids are paying close attention at the 9th grade level to the responses. And then on the back end of that lesson, we had a Google form survey where they could answer questions on like, what do they need? Would they like a student planner? How did they feel like the lesson went? And we had over half of the students request one. So we had really great feedback, and that's kind of where the planner came from, was that discussion. And then Kim shared that idea with me. So we collaborate all the time and share templates and ideas.
I just piggyback something. What about feedback on software and apps that are being purchased from the website?
Let's wait for that.
I'll get to that in just a second.
So you showed them how to use this too.
Oh, yeah, and I was gonna say at Welsh Valley too, they actually incorporate the planners in their, like they have lessons, so it's like it pairs with it, which is really nice. I also helped create this entry slide so that when students come in the any class, they see the same slide that gives them the same expectations. This is your do now, this is your homework. Teachers are going around to double check that the students are copying it down, so it's all just kind of like scaffolding them to a point that as it goes on later in the year, they can pull back a little bit because the students have like mindfully practiced it.
So are these all on,
So-
they're on paper, right?
They're on paper,
Okay.
and what's really nice is like this just started this year, and often what happens in one school is like one school will start this, right? One school, and I know I've seen your faces. One school will start this, yes, and one school will start this.
We're
and-
getting questions in
and
the chat
yes,
about saying,
yes,
why
one-
not
yes,
Ballot Inlet
Yes,
or
one
wherever?
school will start this, and especially because we started it this year, they'll say, wow, this is great. But they want to see, how does it work throughout the year? And then we'll take that, and often then we take it and then we expand it out. And the nice thing is because we meet weekly, I don't know if we've mentioned that, we meet weekly and we share like our successes, our challenges, et cetera, with each other. And then we take these things and say like, how can we scale this to our schools? So that's definitely like, it's not just going to be one, a very specific thing, but we want to give you examples of how things start and then how we're able to then
So are
expand
the
them.
students currently using a version of that at Welsh Valley, or all the students?
All the students, yes.
And then what about at Lower Merion? Just the freshmen or some of the freshmen?
Yeah, so we piloted with just 9th grade to start, but then we had extra copies left over, so we've opened it up to whoever wants to come down and grab one can pick it up. Would you like this one?
Yeah, I like my 11th grader. Yeah.
But you can buy them a planner and they won't use it, so it's good you're teaching them how to use it and have the teachers tell them. I
Mhm, there
love
used to
that.
be planners
Please
in
spread
the
it to the other schools.
And middle
Yeah.
school.
That's something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember pre-COVID, there were
Yes,
planners.
and
I love that the student voice is kind of being
yes.
put into this, but it's not like, so after COVID, kind of those planners went away and now you're trying to reintegrate
Yes.
this with more student voice.
Yes, like
This
before
is
students just were given a planner and we
Yeah.
realized because they were part of it, instead of being given something as being part of it is such a big deal. And like we saw that as well, like we we transitioned in the secondary to Schoology. We used to have Blackboard or Google Classroom if they were 5th grade, and then they moved into Schoology. And to present it, instead of me going in and say, we're gonna switch over to Schoology, I actually brought in a group of students, showed them Schoology, and said, what do you like about this? And then they made a video that said their top favorite things about Schoology, and we played it for all the students so that when they came back that school year, they were like, oh, I'm excited about this because my friend said, these are the cool things that I'm gonna use in it.
Can you use that same idea for Valley Kimwood and Black Rock for planner? That it's not like the teachers are going, here's a planner, it's the kids going, hey, this is
That's
really
it.
cool.
I love that idea. See, we're gonna hire you. Yes.
It's so cool that the
Yes.
kids are getting excited about paper
Yes,
stuff,
yes,
the way they might have been getting excited.
yes.
I'm not speaking correctly, so I need to go back to school. But the way
No,
they
we
were
know,
getting
yes.
excited about the technology,
Yes.
they're getting excited about paper, so it's kind of the balance of
Yes,
the two.
yes, and that's a big thing, the balance, yeah.
And I
Very
think the
impressive.
agency piece of it, like having, sorry, I'm looking at Becca,
Because I always bring up stuff about student agency and voice,
yeah, the student voice and all this is so hugely important.
So are there firm steps in place that this will be across all the middle schools next year and?
I can, you know, I
move on
can
to the high
definitely
schools?
get back to you. I know that they've shared, and I think maybe at the point, like, you know, they can look at it for next year. I just don't want to speak for the other buildings,
Sure.
but oftentimes what happens, and I've seen this in my role, is one school will try something, pilot it out, and then other schools will take that idea, make it fit for their school and their school community and make it work.
Maybe we can advocate.
That's what I was
I
just
feel like
thinking.
I hear there's a huge unmet need for something like this. It's like you have Schoology, you have a one-pager that the teachers give out, you have some teachers who send a weekly plan, it's all over the place. So maybe we can enforce that there is an unmet need that can be filled by something.
Especially
like
for
that.
the
Yes.
younger.
They're really struggling.
When they're making that transition.
if we do that, can we just advocate for it to happen in the same process, right? Because then it's just like, look, students made it one place
Yes.
and then carry that same thing, it won't have the same effects.
Well, and it probably needs a student agency, the student voice in it every
Every year.
certain, every 2 years, so that they know that it's still owned by me. You know,
Yeah,
they still have
we've
that
also
ownership.
changed it. We print it out each quarter, and each quarter after we've seen what students have said they've liked or they didn't like. So, for example, the first one didn't have the days off on their calendar. And they said, we want the days off. I was, all right, so I added the day, they added the days off. And the second thing was they wanted more space to write like their to-dos. So like, it's like that's the nice thing about building these things, that they're ever evolving and they can change based on the
But
need.
you're not printing out 1,000 copies of something.
Of something
stock,
that's,
right?
yeah,
And every few years,
You
you
can
can change the
just-
video of the kids talking about how excited they are. for
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then it's a constant, they see a different clothing, so you're not like watching the video from the 70s.
Yes.
And you're going, oh, okay,
Yes.
you know.
So Kimberly, when
really
you're,
neat.
I'm sorry, when you're working with these students, how do you come up with the group of students that you're working with, and how do you ensure equity in the design?
Yes. So what I did was I actually worked with the coordinator of student interventions at our building. So she and I partnered on this together. Her name's Christy Fruit. And we reached out to the different grade levels and asked for students that showed strong executive functioning skills, and also students that seemed like they could use a little bit more support. We wanted it mixed of students that like were telling us things that worked, that actually really did work for them, and other students that maybe that was a need. And we wanted to have them all together so they could talk through. And it was funny, just middle schoolers talking about this, and some students saying, oh, I just remember things. And the students that maybe have that strong executive like skills built in are looking at them like, what? Like that doesn't, and their conversations were really interesting. But we also made sure there was a mix of students represented in who we brought in. We did that for each grade level. We didn't include our 5th grade students when we made that, as they were so new to the middle school experience. They didn't have we felt like they didn't have enough, but maybe we can pull them in at the end of this year and say, what could you have used more of, or what could you have need more of? But we tried to make sure that it was a mix of that.
I was going to address, I can address your question more about software. and things like that, how we get student voice into that. I am responsible for all of the apps that are on the kindergarten and first grade iPads. We have a lot of iPads in the hands of students, and we have a lot of apps on those iPads. They're, like I said before in the beginning, they're deliberately selected, but when a new app is needed, usually the need comes from a teacher saying, you know, hey, our students need to work on short vowel sounds, or our students need to work on some skill. I look in the App Store, I do research, I find apps that I think are going to be good options, and I bring them into classrooms and test them with students. Kids love this because they feel like they're part of the process, and it's the most exciting thing when they test an app with me. You know, today they'll go through and they'll test it and they'll give me, usually they give me like a really sophisticated rating scale of, I love the app, it's okay, or I don't like the app. But for kindergarten or first grade, that's a pretty sophisticated scale. And I also talk with the teachers as well to see what they think. But when they come in 2-3 days later and the app is on their iPads for everybody, they think that's like the coolest thing because they got to pick that. So I do always test out apps in classrooms with students. I usually just put it on my device and we play the game together to make sure that it does what it says and it you know, teaches the learning goals that we're looking for. I also try to incorporate student voice. Last year we switched, we have keyboarding skills at the elementary level, and we actually have 2 programs this year. We have Keyboarding Without Tears for K and 1, and then we have Typing.com for grades 2 through 4, and that came about from our students. I tested 3 different products last year. I tested Typtastic, Typing.com, Keyboarding Without Tears. And I tested them with 5 different classes. I had a 2nd grade class, 2 3rd grade classes, and 2 4th grade classes. And all year they had about a month to work on one product, and then they gave me feedback on it. Then they had another month to work on a different product, gave me feedback on it, and then of course the 3rd month to work on the 3rd product. They all completed Google Forms. The teachers also in the classroom completed Google Forms, and then based on all the results, talking to the kids and seeing what they liked, that's how we ended up with 2 different products, because they really liked Typing.com for the older students, but Keyboarding Without Tears was better for younger students, and it also works much nicer on iPads. And so we decided that that made the most sense, and that's what we've been using this year. It's our first year having this kind of model. And I'll continue to evaluate it with students. I followed the kids from last year, not the 4th graders, obviously, because they're in the middle school, but the 2nd graders and the 3rd graders. I have a small focus group of kids that I've been following so that I can see how they like using it now with the whole class using it, to see if it's still the right program. There's no like long-term commitment. So if I decide, you know, Typing.com didn't work this year, we can always go back to keyboarding for everybody. But I like to get as much student involvement in it because they're the ones using it. I want to make sure teachers can access it and it's user-friendly and they can get some data from it. So it's been really successful this year having these 2 programs, but based on the student feedback from last year.
Can you go over how it's done in the middle school?
Oh, I mean, it's all very similar. When people want to use a product, teachers, students, et cetera, it all goes through a vetting process. So what happens is we first look at the product, and all 3 of us actually look at it. We look at the product, we go and we look at the terms of service, we look at the privacy policy, we look and see as well, do we have a product that we're already using that does something very similar? Because what we don't want to do is inundate students to learn one product that we already have paid or we're already using for something else, or they're not hopping from this platform to this platform. So we're mindfully looking at what we have and seeing, is this something new and innovative? How is the teacher using it? We take a first look at it, and then it actually continues to go up, kind of like the chain of command, if you want to call it, and then it goes to the curriculum supervisors, and then it will go to Scott, and then it will go to our solicitors, and the solicitors look at it and make sure legally that they're okay with how it works, and then the product will be approved. And once that product is approved, then we're still a part of it. The product gets approved, we'll talk to the teachers and say, hey, this is approved. Let's talk about ways that we're going to mindfully use this. And that could be in different ways. We could work individually with the teachers if it's something specific to their content area. We all do tech tips. So it could be in our tech tip that we're saying, oh, this new product that we have is featured. This is how we're going to utilize it, or these are some ways you can utilize it, or we could have it in like a bigger forum. But we have a really streamlined process of how we vet products for our
Is there
students.
any attempt to solicit feedback from parents and students for that matter?
Regarding like specific apps and
Regarding
websites.
whether that software actually does what it's supposed to do, or are there any problems with that?
Teachers will often bring up if they notice that the students have problems, like with a certain
What about if students
website.
and parents notice?
That
Well,
would
we
probably
do
be-
have a help desk and they have a phone number, an email address.
That's different, that's just like for the, like,
it
if the
is-
software doesn't do what it's supposed to do, that's.
I would say that's like one of the first like levels though of like communicating that to our district, because our, like technically the vetting process is totally handled by our Department of Technology, which we are technically on the curriculum instructional side of it. So while we are involved in the vetting, that goes up to like Director of Technology. And like I would say if you're not sure, you can always reach out to one of us about one of the products, like you're welcome to email us. You also could contact the help desk and that could start a red flag there for us. Like we do get routed tickets sometimes that we can then look into and follow up on different products.
Okay, we're gonna jump in right now and just say, there's so many questions, obviously, and we're seeing a bunch coming through the chat. That we're gonna suspend our questions for right now.
Okay.
And make sure that we give everyone a chance to ask their questions, both in the room and on Zoom. And then if we have time at the end and we've answered everyone's questions, then we'll come back to our standard ones. But we're seeing a lot coming through, so, and obviously there's some in here. So we're gonna open it up to questions now. Anyone in the room, or do you want us to go Zoom? Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know if this is a question for you guys or not, because I mean, everything sounds so great with how you're trying to balance and like you're thinking outside the box, but also bringing in and balancing everything. For parents that are a little bit more unsure in the technology world, being me, and other people are way better, how do we get the passwords to be able to see what they're working on in school or curriculum or the software? I want to even know what software, like typing.com I just wrote down because that's great to do at home. I had a typing class. We literally were on typewriters. That's how I learned. I mean, that's how I use it now. So I watch my kid doing this and I'm like, okay, we're going to kind of show you, not that he's not learning, but how maybe can the parents get more involved with the technology that's at school? And that might be more communication or this or that, I don't know, but I'm asking.
I mean, I can start, the elementary level is separate, I think, from the secondary because our devices don't go home. And so that changes a little bit of how you see what's going, you know, if the computer went home, you would see what was on it, you would see what they were expected to do. That's been actually a deliberate change that they don't go home. I'm not gonna lie, I love it that they don't go home because so many issues would happen on the bus, would happen in, you know, walking down the hallway or walking to the bus stop and kids are hoping, don't laugh, they're holding their Chromebooks out, walking to the bus stop and they're playing games and things like that, yes.
Yeah.
All
They
kinds
have
of
to
stuff,
stay
and
in
a
the
lot of the
classroom
a lot of the issues, and I do, teachers bring things a lot to me at the elementary level, the issues, the one-offs, the kids who have found things that they're not supposed to find or have circumvented things we've put in place to keep them safe. It happens, and so a lot of that comes through me as well, and most of that was happening on the bus or on the hallways and the unstructured times, you know, waiting for things. So the device not going home changes your involvement a little bit because you're not going to see typing.com because it's going to be something they would do at school. So you wouldn't necessarily know that. One of the things I could tell you for elementary families is logging into ClassLink is something they can do at home. ClassLink is on our district webpage. If you just go to quick links at the top, you'll see ClassLink. They're alphabetical, so it's right at the top. And having your student log in and they just use their S0 number at the elementary level. Hopefully your child knows we call it the S0 number, but it's just S and it starts with a 0 and it's a long series of numbers, and then they have a password. Logging into ClassLink will show you the platforms that we as a district pay for and that you know, kids would be using throughout the day. So Dreambox would be on there, Kids would be on there, typing.com would be on there. things like that would all be on that page. That would be just a quick, easy way. But I would encourage you, the district webpage has there's an elementary curriculum page. There is a digital citizenship page that I run myself, which I'm pretty proud of because I try really hard to keep it as current as I can. I read a lot. And I try, anytime I find something really good, I put it on my newsletter, and I put the newsletter's link to the webpage. So you can just go to the district webpage and you'll see a big thing for Tech It Out is the newsletter's name. Pretty clever, thank you. So on the Tech It Out newsletter, I try to put articles, I try to put resources, things like, okay, I don't want my kid to access social media, or my kid needs a phone because they have X, Y, and Z, but I'm not sure if they're ready for a phone. How do I know? There's articles about that kind of stuff. There's great podcasts. I'm a big podcast fan because I can wash dishes and still learn something new at the same time. So I love listening to podcasts, and so I have a few that I highly recommend. They're all listed on my Tech It Out newsletter, and they're also on the digital citizenship webpage. So honestly, start by looking at the district resources, asking your teachers. You can always ask me. I love talking about this stuff. I can talk about this all day long. So you can reach out to your kid's teacher. If your kid's teacher doesn't know, they're going to come to me. But that's where I would suggest is just looking at what resources we have available for the elementary level.
Yeah, I have one question and one kind of concern that I wanted to share. My kids are in the elementary level, and one of the concerns that I'm having in the classrooms is that when they finish an assignment before the rest of the class, the teacher will just tell them to go on their iPads instead of saying, why don't you go read a book? Or why don't you work on this math work page? And I know my middle had that one day, and so he went on his iPad and was looking up what kind of wristband he wanted for an Apple Watch when he's allowed to have one in a couple years. And I'm like, that's really not what we should be doing in the classroom. Is there any way to, kind of reiterate that with the teachers, hey, let's have these kids pick up a physical book instead of getting on an iPad when they have with a concern of mine.
Before you answer, we're just gonna repeat Talia's question because we're getting a message through the chat that
They can't
just
hear.
because of the way the microphones are working. So she's basically saying that her children are being told to go on their iPads after they finish an assignment in their classroom instead of saying, just pick up a book or something like that, or have some other kind of work available for them, that they're being told to go on their iPads and then, what was the
It
other
was just
part?
kind of a concern of mine, and I don't know if this is right to bring up, but.
It's a legitimate concern, but it's
Yeah,
probably
sure.
administrative response as opposed to guests.
Yeah. So sorry. And so my question is, what do you think the pros and cons are of putting tech into each subject versus having a technology-based course?
Question there was, what are the pros and cons of integrating technology into each subject instead of having a technology-specific course?
We have in the middle school, they have tech ed, they have computers, so those are classes that are available. But as you can see, look at our world, look around us, technology is all around us. It's almost impossible to, in the world, especially with our students, some of our textbooks are even online, that students would be able to function in their entire day with having it separate. Something big that we're trying to do in education, not with just technology and in terms of our subject areas, is when things are learned in silos, when you're breaking them up by subject areas, it's hard for students to take that and transfer it into the real life. Because in real life, I'm doing math now, and then I'm doing social studies. And the same thing is when you're learning technology throughout your day, because it's integrated mindfully in your lessons, you're able to, when you're in society, be able to think about, this is a good time that I need to use technology to help me. In this moment, I don't need technology to help me. And having that integrated throughout our whole day mindfully can help our students, as opposed to just thinking, I can use computers during computers class. And if anyone else wants to add, that's just my take.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, I just went to Pete and C last week and saw Dr. Tara Natras speak, and she's one of the innovation coordinators for ISTE and ASCD, which are two professional education institutions. And one of the ways she presented it was there's three groups of students. One is going to be the students who are the developers, and they need those like one-off courses or like, you know, really targeted computer science courses that are going higher level. Then you have your like moderators, people that are gonna be able to like manipulate some of the technology, but maybe don't need to be as heavy into the coding or the development of it. And then you have like your everyday users, and that's, you know, gonna be all of us too. And how do you prepare them for a world with technology, but, you know, they don't need that higher level. And it was just, I thought it was a unique way to think about it. We were talking about specifically with AI, but I think it, you know, is transferable here too. It just helped me to kind of understand why it needs to be everywhere, because if we don't, then we're not servicing one of those groups. So yeah, I think integration is super important, yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, and then Becca, I'll go to you, but just, I guess one question that I've always had is like determining, like, how does the district figure out what's better, like, through technology, learn through technology versus on paper? Like, obviously there was a clear decision, even though you're the tech specialist, to kind of bring in the paper agendas, which I still, like, I bullet journal, I kind of have my, this thing goes with me almost everywhere. Like, how is that decision being made? And then I'm sorry, I'll go back to you guys, but I just kind of tying into Talia's question, like, and I don't know if that happens in your department, if that comes from like Dory and Drew right now, like where is that coming, how does that play out?
So in terms of like instructional technology, we have like 3 main practices that kind of guide our, and I'll like pass it along because I know we kind of prepared originally a presentation. So some of the things that we think about, and part of like our instructional technology background, is there are a few frameworks that guide our practices that we use when we work with students. So one is called SAMR, if you've ever heard of it. And basically it stands for looking at technology and for integration. It's kind of like, you look at it in the first way is you're using technology just as a substitution. And we really don't want teachers to be at that level. If you can do something paper pencil with the same thing you can do with technology, what's the purpose, what's the give? And then as you go up, you're really trying to get to a point where technology is either modifying or redefining the experience that technology is making it past the classroom walls. Like, how can we take what we learned and share it out to a wider community? Or how can technology take what the students are learning and really enhance it? And we use those practices to help guide us. And there's 2 others, and I'll pass them over. So
I was gonna talk about Bold School.
Yes.
Bold School is a text that we've read, and I'm drawing a blank on.
Bold School.
Schools. And it's a great text because it basically talks about identifying the purpose of what do you want students to do? What do you want them to learn? How do you want them to do that? And then picking the right device to do that. Maybe it's paper pencil, maybe it's a hybrid model, maybe it's something that incorporates, you know, more than one modality, but it's basically, and there's a 4-part grid that you can look at to decide where you see this activity fitting in, what do you want the students to accomplish, and then selecting the tool based on that. So we do look at the book. I kind of always have that hat on as I'm selecting technology as well for Bold School.
And my TPAC?
Apparently,
I love
apparently TPAC.
So TPAC is literally TPACK. I learned about it in my undergraduate courses at Millersville. So it's, you know, everybody's probably had some exposure to it in teacher education, but it's technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. So 3 buckets. So a teacher's knowledge of how to use instructional technology, how do they practice teaching, their pedagogy, and then what is their content knowledge of like the specific things they're teaching. And when you can elevate all of those and when they can interplay, you have more effective teaching, essentially. So the goal is to build all of those over time. So one of the things we see our role as is helping to really build that technology knowledge to be able to benefit our instruction and even our content knowledge. Something else I would say that informs what we do, everyone's trying to stay on top of everything that's happening and changing so rapidly. And so we do look a lot outside of our own district to look at what are other districts, what are other states doing. A lot of states have online classes in high school. Like some states require it. Like you must take an online course before you graduate. So we are very aware that like most students are gonna graduate here and do some form of online learning, whether it's at a post-secondary institution, on the job training. everybody's probably doing something online. And so we know that it's really important to prepare our students to not just be able to like navigate online, but to be able to learn in that more independent mode of learning. So I think, you know, we try to keep that big picture in mind too of what are we preparing them for down the road.
Thanks. And we'll just
Just go
continue
right
around
around.
the room.
Alright, so Leora left one of her questions with me, and then I have one, so I'm just gonna say both and you can pick them out. Her question was around so she's a psychiatrist, so she's got an MD background, and she's like, hey, American Association of Pediatrics recommends no more than 2 hours of screen time a day for minors. That can get really tricky to navigate as parents when you don't know how much screen time the kids have had during the day in school, and especially trickier when the kids, once they hit middle school and high school, have multiple teachers, and therefore the teachers may not even know how much screen time. And so she asked me to ask you all, like, how does that factor into this mindful, really appreciate all the things you were talking about mindful technologies and making sure it's enhancing the learning experience, but does that piece factor in, especially when thinking about middle and high school where they are walking around with those devices and able to use them in between classes and then taking them home and given homework that is also frequently on screens, right? So that's her
Wait,
question.
so pause there and we'll repeat that, let them answer that, and then you can
Okay.
go to your question. So the question was, if the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends for that age group no more than 2 hours of screen time per day, how are parents supposed to navigate that when they are unaware of how much screen time a teacher is allowing per day? And also, if there are various teachers, maybe the teacher doesn't even know.
We aren't tracking that data, so it's not something that we are like looking at in terms of like numbers, but it is part of anytime we lead a instructional tech like professional development, we always have sort of guidelines, and we have led entire sessions on like chunking information, especially during COVID times, like when it was all virtual, being really mindful that, you know, really it should be like, you know, this amount of time that there's instruction and then there's time to reflect and process. So I think that makes me push more into like the instructional piece, not so much of the screen time, but like, are we asking them to do something purposeful? Because not all screen time is equal, right? Like, you know, gaming or researching or watch bands might be less, you know, useful over time, whereas maybe I'm collaborating with my group on a project and we need to get this together before tomorrow, or I'm editing my draft for my writing assignment. So I do think when our teachers are integrating technology, we really advocate for that higher level thinking and higher quality screen time. I don't know if that.
But not anything about quantity.
In terms of quantity, I mean, when I walk through our halls, I never see students on computers all day. So that's, you know, from my personal, what I can tell you, what I observe, I see students in groups speaking to one another, presenting. I just sat in on presentations last week. I do think our teachers diversify instruction as much as possible and look to like use the technology to support learning.
Jen, do you have anything?
Yeah, I can speak for elementary for sure. The first thing I can say is that people have often asked me over the years, because we've been using iPads in kindergarten since 2010. And sometimes people say, why would you put technology? Like, we've been one-to-one in kindergarten since 2010. And people say, why did you put technology in the hands of 5-year-olds? Like, why would you be one-to-one with little kids? And the answer is because technology gives them something they couldn't otherwise have, which is feedback. So the apps that we have on the iPad, they're deliberate. Like I said, I've personally selected, I can tell you every app that's on there, and I can tell you how to play every app. I can tell you how to customize every app. They're there because they give something that the teacher couldn't do with 20 kids in a room at a time. You know, if they're reading a book, they have the opportunity to record themselves and listen to it back. They can answer questions on it. If they're playing a game, it's a math game, it's a reading game. There aren't just games on there. If they are searching the internet, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, because at no point does go on Safari an option for a kindergartner or a first grader. To be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised that a kindergartner or first grader would know how to do that, because they don't.
Sorry, that was a third grader on a Chromebook.
Okay,
So,
that, I was going to say that wouldn't have been a first grader on an iPad, because iPads they don't use
A third grader on a Chromebook can figure out how to search an Apple band.
Yeah.
It's like a little mind blowing.
Yeah.
I think it's more than we realize.
Yeah.
I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
But so, to be honest with you, when you talk about kindergartners using their free time to go on an iPad, in my head, that makes me feel good, because they're gonna play something that's gonna give them feedback, that's gonna track what they're doing. A lot of the apps that we use are adaptive, so it moves levels as they move and it progresses with them. If they're reading a book, they may be using skills that, they haven't learned yet. They may be reading something that's too high for them. They may not be doing it correctly, but if they're using an app, they're gonna get the feedback, and they wouldn't otherwise have that. They're also independent. There's not a lot 5-year-olds can do for 15 minutes of independent time in a room of 20 kids, but they can be independent on an iPad. So it does give that extra opportunity. But as far as the amount of time, a kindergartner or first grader, they don't do anything for more than about 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes, and they move to another activity, and they move to another activity. So they're not going to be spending an hour on an iPad at any given time. They might spend 10 minutes now, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they spend another 10 minutes, but they're not going to spend an hour at any time because they're 5 and 6, and they don't have the attention span for that. So like I said, it might be little chunks of time, but it is directed. It is, like you said, screen time. There's different types of screen time. And to me, screen time that gives you feedback is totally different than mindless taking in information screen time. And we don't have that on K-1 iPads for sure. There's no way to do that. With Chromebooks, it is a little bit more difficult because you're right, there's the internet. And with the internet, I mean, we certainly have filters, but filters only capture so much. So that does become a little bit more challenging. Did you go ahead?
I want to let you jump in. Yeah, I'll just have one thing to jump in. And just like I shared before, like something that can happen at one school, we often share ideas and then they can take those and run with them. And something that I did this year at Blackrock Middle School is I created a whole school tech balance lesson, helping students how to manage screen time. This year, middle school students now in their math program is called Desmos. So it has more of those online features. And we did a whole school lesson with students of some ways that they can manage their screen time, what different brain breaks they can take, some things they can do to even make sure that they're attaining to like the task when they're on there. Something that students often do as they get older, and we've seen this probably on our own, is we have tons of our tabs open, and it's called task switching, when you're switching like back and forth and you're kind of like losing your attention for one task, and it takes you much longer to complete. So we've actually done a digital citizenship lesson about that task switching and how you can, when you're attaining, helps you a lot better. So it's just something else.
So we do have 10 people on Zoom, and I know 3 more questions at least.
So we're gonna try to get through.
Maybe if we could ask one person a question instead of all 3 of you, because it's really worthwhile information. I feel like we could do
you
another.
should be able to answer this one. It's just, you all mentioned that you look at privacy policies, but I think it would help a lot of parents to just know specifically, what are you all doing to protect students' private info, and is there anything that parents can be doing to help support that or make sure that what we're doing is data privacy?
So the biggest thing
those in Zoom, the question was, the technology specialists have said that they've worked to protect the students' private info, and the question was, how is that being done, and is there anything parents can do to help assist?
The biggest thing I tell parents is to look at and know all apps and websites that your kids are on. And of course, I'm coming at it as an elementary lens, but I also have teenagers, like I said, and so I know what's on their phones. They back them up to my computer, so I know what they're doing for the most part, much to their dismay. But knowing what they're doing, and honestly, read the terms of service, read the privacy policy. They tell you exactly what they do. They will tell you, we sell your data to third-party companies. And most people just click OK and move on and not realize that. They may tell you, we track your location. Well, you have to ask yourself, why do they track your location? Do they need your location? If it's a weather app, yeah, they probably do. But maybe it's a different kind of gaming app that they don't need your location, but they'll tell you.
No, does that mean they can't have the app then?
I mean, yes, in my house, if it says something I don't think I agree with, then my kids don't get that app. For the most part, my kids have Snapchat, I mentioned that. They have Instagram, things like that. But my kids are in high school, so it's a little bit different. But I read them. I am the person who reads all of the privacy policy in terms of service for anything that my kid says, I want this app. My daughter still has every time she wants a new app, I get a text that says she wants this app, and I look at it, and I have to approve it. She's not thrilled with that because she's 15 and a half, but that's the way it is. My son doesn't have that because he's almost 18 now, but they still have that on their phones so that I can see what they're, and I have said no to things that, well, all my friends are using it. I said the terms of service said this, or the privacy policy said this, you can't have it, find something else, and I'll help her find something else. I also believe very much in having conversations with your kids, asking them what app they, why are they asking for this app? What do they want it for? What do they expect it to do? What do they know about it? Most of the time it's, all my friends have it, and that's the end of their conversation, that's all they know about it. But if they know what it does, then, okay, well, if you want a shared calendar, we can find a different app that does that in a safer way.
And
That
so
was.
is it safe to assume that all the things that are done for the school is not collecting any data about the school?
Everything that we use here has been vetted by our solicitors. So yes, you can trust that we have vetted it ourselves, our supervisors have vetted it, and then it does go all the way up the chain of command through the solicitor. So everything here has been vetted, yes.
You can look on the district site and it gives you like a list of like our commonly used programs, and you can always like look into them, but those are all.
So I have a concern and a question. I'll start with the concern because we can get through that quickly. My kids are in fourth grade. I especially noticed that starting fourth grade, lots of kids start playing video games in school. Becomes a big distraction in classroom, outside the classroom. I wonder if the school district, especially for elementary school, have a whitelist instead of blacklist, like not filtering, but only allowing certain things through to better control that, or provide a tool for the teachers to monitor each kid's computer usage in classroom. If they can see right away who's playing, right, and address that right there instead of checking, oh, who's like hiding underneath the desk and trying to do something. Because eventually it becomes to disruption in instruction time. Like other kids get distracted, or other kids say, oh, what is he playing, that kind of thing. So that's my suggestion or concern. Probably don't have to answer right now, I think.
I mean, I can speak to that if you want to know a little bit about it. We've talked about those products, we've looked at those products. A, they cost money, but B, they often have different privacy concerns because they're tracking the kids on their computer. So oftentimes when we try to vet them, they don't make it through our vetting process because they're tracking, and they do obtain student data in the process of keeping them safe. They're still collecting the data from the students.
But if other school districts are using it.
I'm sorry?
If other school districts are using it.
So other school districts do things that we do not do here in Lower Merion. We do also have the Robbins order, which does have a certain level of privacy and expectation that other school districts do not have. But I can say, because my kids are in a different school district, and I used to believe other school districts are doing it too, but sometimes I'm kind of surprised at, well, why are my kids doing this? Like that's not, I don't really want them to do that. Like there's a little bit too much open room for them. So I'm not super much to subscribe to the other school districts are doing it. They have different expectations than we do here.
Okay, so my question, sorry, is about, I know the majority of the educational software out there are based on gamer mentality, where the kids are doing level up. If you answer the question right, you get level up, then you skin, you weapon, that kind of thing. We at home, we don't agree with that philosophy. We think the reward should not come from, points awarded to you, instant reward. It should come from your curiosity being satisfied. You make connection with the real world problems, right? So I don't know, is it we are having so many this kind of educational software because there's no alternatives out there, or because the school pretty much agree with that philosophy and are not looking hard enough for the alternatives out there? My concern is if the school is content with going down this route, I don't think we are trying to help the students. Yeah.
I was going to let you repeat that.
So to recap, if the mentality of playing games where you earn additional points and skins and scores is being used in this programming the schools are using as well,
for educational systems,
where like you get extra points and you move to a new level, is the reward of researching and learning for the curiosity of learning the information, is that something that the school doesn't
agree with in the same way? Or I'm sorry, does the school agree with the points leveling up?
The gamer
Am I-
level
am I saying it
mentality.
right?
So I think it's like a gamer level mentality that a lot of our, sorry, frog in my throat, software programs do kind of like, you know, and I've seen this as well.
You
like-
achieve a level, you get points.
And it's engaging, right? Like it's,
I think
there's an
obviously
addictive nature to it.
some technology programs, they call it like the gamification learning, because it is in like an engaging way. But if you look at our strategic plan, and if you look at some of the things that we're doing in our school, our strategic plan models a lot of the things that you just shared, making those real world applications. If you look at what we did at all of our elementary schools, they all now have a PBL, which is that project or problem-based learning, where they're connecting to a real life problem and they're trying to, using inquiry, trying to solve it. If you look at our new science standards that we're integrating, the whole big part of it is inquiry and phenomenon, looking at something that's happening in the real world, having curiosity about it. So that is like our driving force. Now, do we have some programs that use gamification? Yes. Is that our whole philosophy of education? No. Look at the strategic plan. That's like really our guidelines of what we really honor in our classrooms and what we would like.
I was going to mention too that a lot of the software that we do use, like Dreambox, for example, is what we call adaptive technology. And what it means is it will, depending on how your child answers the question, and not just how they answer it, because they may get the correct answer, but they may have done it in 3 steps, whereas a kid may have done it in 1 step. They may have done it in 30 seconds, where a kid may have done it in 10 seconds. It takes in all of the information as how long the kid answers, how many steps did they take, did they answer it in the most efficient way, did they do it maybe with 4 mistakes, and it puts them on this track, and it will modify all of the coursework moving forward based on how they perform versus the kid who needed extra time, the kid who did it in 3 steps. And then the teacher can take that information and see exactly how many steps it took, how long did it take, and then they can assign additional work based on that. I see that my student is struggling in these areas. I want to give them a little extra practice in this. It really modifies as they go. It's not just I click and I got 3 as the correct answer and I get to the next question. Maybe 3 was the right answer, but maybe it took me a minute and a half to get there, or maybe I made 4 mistakes before I got there. And so it will then give me more questions on it to see, do I really understand that concept? It really does adapt to each student, and that's something that's really hard to replicate in a classroom of 20 some odd kids with 1 teacher.
And these are all supplementary. Like when we think about like our core experiences, those types of ones that you're referring to are like supplementary, something that can use to enhance, but it's not like the guiding resource that we would use in an entire classroom.
I think many parents don't get it's supplementary. That when there's downtime, get on Dreambox. And if anyone helps with Dreambox, and then you get ahead more than you should, and then the kids don't have a chance to ask the questions and they get frustrated and they go a different way, and I think it becomes more than supplementary. And I think that's the frustrating part. And I don't know the answer, but I think that from a parent's point of view, maybe it's better to pick up the book and look at pictures or go to the Lego table. You know, something like
Just
that.
in the interest of time, we want to make sure we get to the rest of the questions
we
in the
have
room,
some
and then we
online.
have some online. So
Mine's super speedy. It was a 1-second shout out for your Tech It Out newsletter. I've read it for forever and it's very helpful. And the most, one of the best ISC hot topics I ever attended was like probably 8 or 10, I don't even remember how long ago it was, where you did practical tips for parents. My kids were in early elementary, so it was like Greek right over my head, but I would love to see something like that revisited in terms of like parental controls, requests for apps. Like I try to figure it out through the newsletter and resources, but I think for parents, especially middle and maybe high school, but mostly middle school, it would be enormously valuable.
That's what she said.
Because you
clear your
yeah.
schedule. Okay,
Does it?
did you guys have questions?
Any thought to getting feedback from parents on any of this, on any of the software specifically, on any problems with the software? Because, for example, adaptive software oftentimes doesn't accept the answer if it's like, if the letter is not capitalized, even though it's a math answer, and then the kid gets frustrated because they are being put back into what they already know. It's easy for them, or with like Dreambox, the kid figures out that if they don't answer correctly, they're only gonna get easy stuff and they don't have to work as hard. And with some of the kind of going on to the middle school research where they just go on the web and they can spend eternity on it, there doesn't seem to be any stop sign on there coming from the teacher, from the classroom. Some of the latest one was, there's a database that was introduced in middle school that doesn't work. And the kid is getting frustrated again, hours spent, information not learned.
Sorry, so the first,
So any kind of, there seems to be a disconnect between what's being sold and what's there.
yeah,
receiving.
first one
Yeah.
was like parent
I
feedback.
think Laura shared like for the software, some avenues already, and if
Like the
Laura
help
went with the help
desk.
desk,
Yeah,
et
help
cetera. For databases, that's actually comes from our librarians. They teach the students about the databases. So if that's like a database, again, if you want to like email, we can make sure that that's up and running, but our librarians actually vet those databases. They teach the students about the databases. That's part of their content. Lastly, like a parent feedback area is we started a digital citizenship committee, and we had parents, students, etc. We took a little bit of pause as we had some shift in administration, and that's something that we've talked about we really want to bring back. So that's like an avenue of like working together, but
That would be
definitely
great.
things that
That's
Laura shared,
actually,
yeah.
I've never even heard that. That would be great, and it would be great to have someone from the ISC kind of be represented on that too, if we can bring that back. I do, and John, I know you've got a question, and Cicely, I don't know if you want to ask a question live, but there's a lot of discussion among parents, the wait until 8 group, and just even the high school level, like one of the quirky things that I see is like even my kids using Quizlet, and now Quizlet has ads. So anytime the ad comes on, my kid then picks up the phone and kind of gets like pulled back from the work. So I feel like there are some pieces to this that parents are really seeing. I loved hearing you guys speak, especially just about how mindfully you're really thinking about this, and I think that's coming across clear. But on the end user end and the parenting end, and for me, like my kid now has Netflix on their computer. They've always known our password. I'm not going to change the password because I trust my kid, but I never would have given my kid a TV in their room, and now all of a sudden with the laptop they have access to TV in their room. Like there's a lot of issues that as parents I think we're facing, that it would be nice to be able to have kind of a more in-depth kind of here's what we're experiencing discussion with you, because it's scary for us. Like you said, we can't call our parents to say like, hey, how did you do this? Like the world is changing so crazy
Netflix
fast.
is,
I feel
Netflix
like,
is such a source that my daughter is dying to get it on her phone, and I will not put it on her phone, but she has asked like repeatedly.
but it's on the computers, right? Like, so
Well, it's on the computers, but
She
only
doesn't-
accessible during
she-
certain times.
and it's only accessible
Yeah,
at
she
home,
doesn't
it's
have
not
it on her
accessible at
laptop.
school.
Like,
So
they
that's-
can use it on the weekends and in the evenings, but they can't access it during the day.
Wait, it's on school computers?
It's on school,
So
you can put
like,
it on
this is
school
like a
computers, but
don't
not
let
during
them bring
school
their
hours.
computers
Just
to
don't give them
everyone.
the
I installed
password.
that rule because I found
Well,
my
they, a
daughter
lot of them
And
do
my kids
homework in their
remember
room.
that's-
A lot of them,
it's-
okay, but
But I don't wanna get off
just
track.
keeping in mind,
So
we have
let's
8
go to-
minutes left. Cicely, do you want to ask your question? You can unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, ladies. I think
Oh,
you're.
wait,
Cicely, we can't
do
hear
we-
you. Oh, wait.
Oh, she would come, her volume would come through
our
you.
Oh, here, let's turn
wait,
off.
I'll
Because the
turn
volume's
it
off.
Okay.
Sorry, Cicely, hold on 1 second. I'm hitting the wrong button, user error.
Technology.
Oh, you have 3.
Does anyone have their volume up?
Can you?
It's the mic on there.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
can you
you-
guys maybe? Okay, Cicely?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can.
What I said was so profound, I can't even repeat it. So I'm just
Oh, I'm so sorry, babe. That was genius, but can you say it again?
I just wanted to first say thank you so much, ladies. I love seeing women in tech and STEM, and just showing a good example for our children and our students. My question is just back to the executive functioning piece. I loved, and I believe it was Kim, what you're doing at Welsh Valley with your with the students, helping to have input with the planners. And I'm just wondering if there is an equivalent you at BC and at BlackRock, and if this will be done there. I know you mentioned testing it out at one school, but I think, there are children that could really benefit it, and especially if we're seeing children that need it in ninth grade, then really they should be getting the support and the education in middle school. So I'm just wondering if we could duplicate you and put you in the other two schools, and as well as the process, because what is important to students maybe at Welsh Valley and what they would highlight and put in their planners would be different from what they would do at BC and Black Rock.
So,
I think you have to mute it now.
Oh, wait, no, but wait, this is not gonna work. Hold on, Cicely. Oh,
can you just turn
maybe
your sound
turn
down? I turned our mic on. I think we're good. I don't hear
oh,
any
you,
feedback.
but did you turn the sound on?
I'm
The
talking, yes.
volume, no, I mean the volume, so that when somebody.
And I can
Cicely,
hear you.
or can
No,
someone give
she's
us a thumbs up?
I can hear you.
No, if you,
She's still-
like on the top, the touch bar. Yeah. Nope, dim one, I guess.
Let me do it up here.
Hold on, Cicely, I see your microphone's off, but.
Okay. Okay, is it okay if I answer it?
Yeah,
Okay,
go
very
for
good. So that question's often asked. I am across all 3 middle schools. It's very funny, teachers always ask me if they can get one of me at the building each day, because they really find it helpful. But yes, it's one of those items that we share out, and oftentimes one school likes to see how something goes, and then they can, follow suit the following year. So I'll make sure to bring back to the buildings that this was something that the families really enjoyed and want to hear from. I work really closely with our building leaders at each school, and that's something that's really great, is I can help them think about ways that one school's trying out something and we can kind of replicate that in other buildings. So thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you.
And John?
John Bellis, you had a question as well?
Oh, hi, everybody. Yeah, real quick. So first,
Wait,
I mean,
hold on, John.
Hold on.
I can make this
Okay.
louder.
Yeah, you make it.
thought you guys were supposed to be the tech team.
Hey,
here.
John, hold on. There you go.
Okay, now you can speak.
Okay, so I thought you guys were supposed to be the tech team here. Just kidding. I appreciate you guys, everything you do, and especially the stuff where you teach parents, how to do the parental controls and stuff. That's a challenge for me. And I know you guys appreciate the difference between, good tech and bad tech, the good tech stuff that you put on the iPads, and the bad tech being the social media, especially for the kids. So my question is, we have this wait until 8 movement. We have several hundred parents in the elementary schools, signed up. It's really gaining steam. It's getting going. And I'm wondering if you guys, being the tech leaders in the district, can help spread the word about this thing, so that even if you're not endorsing it, even if you're not pushing it, but you're simply saying there's a number of parents out here that are interested in this pledge, just to help us bring awareness to it. Is that something you guys could do for us, for the school district?
Scott, you want to?
Scott says yes.
Sure. We can let people know that there is a movement about it. I have read The Anxious Generation. I have it right next door in my office. It's all highlighted and dog-eared and folded and whatnot. And with like 4 minutes left, I don't have a chance to get on my soapbox about it, but allowing parents to know that there's a push out there, yes, that is definitely something we can do.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
We probably have time for one more question, if there's someone in the room or online that has one more question.
Is there a reason why it can't be universal, like something like planners, right? I get that maybe one school has to try something and see how it goes, but like something like that, you're across the board for 3 places. So like using a universal planner and then adapting it with your building people, like why not just do that across the board?
Yeah, so just some background. I started that at the very end of last school year, and then I used my summer to build all of that. So by the time it was built, it was ready for that school, but then there's 2 other schools and there's the start of the school year. Sometimes it's hard when you're across multiple buildings and you have multiple initiatives, multiple professional development run, et cetera, that you can replicate something like that on such a large scale. But it all comes down to that was built, and then we can share it out and explore. But that's like one challenge I think in our role is that there are so many, wear so many different hats and we support so many different things. And sometimes we have to just, we focus in and sample something, so then we can hopefully take that and spread the reach further.
Can I ask a question, just following up on John's mention of the wait until 8? Personal devices, like especially at the high school level, I would say most, if not possibly all kids have like cell phones. Middle school, it varies. Elementary school, I'm sure there's, even less. But what is the district, I should know this, but what's the district policy on personal devices being used in the classroom? Does that ever happen? Like, I know it's happened at the high school level, but for kids that might not have a device, like how does that?
We
We use that
recently had a comment.
that often away.
Often away is our
is the
our
policy.
We recently had a comment of someone saying that teachers will actually ask students in middle school to pull out their phones and look something up. And it came from a parent at a meeting, at one of our ISC meetings. And so I don't know if that's something you guys are aware of, or if that's just sort of
that seems like it might be like
In
a,
elementary school, there are kids using their Apple Watch calculator.
So Apple Watches still count as a device, and so, I mean, that, it's a classroom management issue. Our teachers do try to be mindful of that, but I know, I get all emails from all 6 principals. And I know that the principals really do try to reiterate with staff that often away includes Apple Watches, any kind of smartwatch, any kind of watch that has device.
So it sounds like you're saying there shouldn't be any teacher ever suggesting a child pull out their own personal device to research something.
the only time I've ever, not to research, the only time I've ever seen that before is in a very like specific case. A teacher might get approval by a principal to say, for this one project, we want to have the students try this. I've seen that in like very small cases. It's not like a wide range. Laura, have you seen that?
It's not devices to everybody across, K to 12, we have access to all that. I just wanted to say, I know you're closing now.
Yeah.
Working with the 3 of them over the years, they accelerate learning. There's so many different like subtopics that came up in this meeting that they can fill a lot of ISC hot topic meetings about. Jen, I was at your meeting 10 years ago, maybe at Gladwin Elementary, when you did that. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Apparently that was one.
So there's like, what's the school district doing? What can we do as parents? So everyone's kind of in the right lane. It's scary. Some of these questions are administrative, like what should happen in the classroom. They don't supervise. They accelerate learning, and they do it at such a high level. The pandemic was run up earlier, and we tried to not talk about that as much, but we had great responses. The district and continuing learning moving, and that was working every day over the summer. So they're problem solvers. They work with policy. When you're questioning about the district, what do you do to keep it safe? There's policy 816, I think it's 816. It goes to the solicitor's office to make sure that it's safe and children are protected. But their role is they work with just about every stakeholder group, including going to HSA meetings. They've done AI workshops. What is it? How are people using it? But there's so many different levels to this conversation, and they're part of all of them. But a lot of this stuff is supervisory and administrative nature. So I want to thank you 3 for representing the district real well. It's beyond today, but every day, what you do for us.
Thank you all so much for being here. Really, very great.
Did you see I saw some, I don't know where I saw it, that there's like new tech coming out with like glasses and you can like ask, and I started thinking, oh my God, how is teaching gonna be?
Wait, Michelle, let's just wrap this up, Michelle.
Hold on one second.
We just need to, I just wanted to wrap this up and let the people on Zoom go. Just in terms of our upcoming events, thank you, no, it's
Here
not
it
there.
is.
Okay, we do have our next roundtable on March 18th. Did I confirm that speaker with you, Scott? Did I confirm? No, okay, so stay tuned for that information on who our guests will be on the 18th of March. Also on March 5th, we have our parent education presentation, which will dovetail really nicely to this, and we invite you all to attend. We will be having Dr. Thomas Heverin come and speak about the integration of AI in academic life. That'll be over Zoom, Wednesday, March 5th at 7. Look at your school newsletters and on the district website for that link. And on February 24th, only live and in person, you will have Cammie and me and a bunch of administrators and ISC team meeting to talk about the book Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, which really is a great read. And also listening to it, he actually is reading it. So highly recommend that as well. So please join us.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you.